Hi, everybody. We are joined today by Chef Daniel Humm and Will Guidara of 11 Madison Park in New York City. Daniel is the executive chef of 11 Madison Park and recent owner as of 11-11-11, which I think is quite fortuitous. Chef Humm started his career at several of Switzerland's finest hotels and restaurants, eventually moving to San Francisco as executive chef of Campton Place, where he garnered attention for his innovative interpretation of contemporary French cuisine. In 2006, Chef Humm became executive chef of 11 Madison Park, where he still is, quickly transforming the restaurant into one of the city's top dining restaurants, or destinations and restaurants. Under his leadership, 11 Madison Park received 4 stars from the New York Times, 1 Michelin Star, and several James Beard Awards, including the James Beard Award for Best Chef in New York City. And Will Guidara, what's wrong with me? Guidara. I keep wanting to say Will Guidara.
He's trying to make me sound more Italian than
I know.
I am.
He said he was going to pretend to do the entire interview in Italian and pretend like he didn't speak any English because I kept wanting to call him Will Guidara. Will Guidara. Will Guidara is from New York. He's the general manager of 11 Madison Park, and since joining Union Square Hospitality Group in 2001, Will has worked at some of the group's finest establishments, including Tabla, where I work too, Cafe 2, Terrace 5, and the Modern at the MoMA, and now as general manager of 11 Madison Park and co-owner. Together, Daniel and Will are responsible for 11 Madison Park's magnificent Art Deco dining room, which provides an ideal backdrop for some seriously delicious and artful cuisine. Please join me in welcoming to Google New York, Will and Daniel.
Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for coming out of your busy schedule across town to come and join us.
Thank you. Really exciting to
We're
be
very
here.
excited to have you. So, Chef, can we start with you? Tell us how you got interested in cooking.
You know, I started cooking really early when I was 14. And my mom cooked at home. And she always bought her ingredients at the farmer's market and at farms. And she made me help in the kitchen. But I only got to do the boring stuff, like cleaning salads and vegetables. And I never really knew at that point that I didn't like it at that time. And I never really thought that I would follow into that direction. But in school, I had a hard time just sitting still. And some of the stuff that we were taught, it just didn't interest me. And during the summers, I was working on farms. And at home, I was helping in the kitchen. And eventually, I went and worked in a restaurant. And I just fell in love with it. And I left school, and I started cooking, and I worked my way up. And I knew the pressure was definitely on because I left school. My dad was not happy. Nobody was happy. And and I knew that this is my only ticket. This is my only chance I have. And I just worked hard, and thankfully I love cooking to the day today. And there has never been a day where I didn't want to come to work. And that is, I think, the greatest sign that I choose the right profession.
I feel the same way every day being a lawyer. It's true. I know. Being a lawyer is the same. So, Will, how did you get into the restaurant business?
Similarly, it's what I've done my entire life. And a little bit different for me because my dad was in the restaurant business as well. So we work pretty long hours. So my mom was the one that didn't want me to go into the business, but my dad was very supportive of it. I was a soda jerk at Baskin Robbins in Westchester, New York when I was 14, which, by the way, for a winter job, working in an ice cream shop is one of the most relaxing jobs you could ever have. I make a sick mint chocolate chip milkshake if you're ever interested. And then that's essentially all I've ever done. I worked at Tribeca Grill as a server when I was a teenager. My dad was running Wolfgang Puck's restaurants in California. He had moved to California, and I was a busboy at Spago. I went to Cornell, to the hotel school there. And then after spending some time in Spain working as a prep cook for a little restaurant in the north of Spain, came back and started working for Danny Meyer. That's when I was at, I say Tabla, tabla.
Sorry, my people say tabla.
And I was the maitre d' there and worked at a few of his restaurants, opened all of the restaurants at the Museum of Modern Art. But what I never wanted to do was be in fine dining. That was never a part of my plan. I always kind of detested the idea of working in these really stuffy, formal environments, and fine dining for me was the antithesis of who I was or what I wanted to represent. But I loved working for Danny, and he asked me to go work with Daniel as 11 Madison Park was beginning its transformation.
Right, so tell us about that. How did that partnership come to be? How did you guys find your way to 11 Madison? And you came through Downey?
Well, yeah, so it started with him. I'll let you actually start the story because he was at Campton Place.
I was at Campton Place, and I was in the U.S. 3 years at that time, and Danny called me, and he said, he had dinner at Campton Place, and he loved it, and he has this great restaurant in New York that he wants to just make into a different restaurant, because at that time, it was known to be a brasserie, and the food was, it was like côte de boeuf, shellfish platters, French fries, and Danny felt like 11 Madison Park deserved to be a greater restaurant, a world-class restaurant. And at that time, I didn't know who Danny was, and I did some research, and I only heard very positive things, so I started.
Just Danny for everyone, as of course.
Danny Meyer.
Danny.
Yes.
Danny Meyer,
Who
go ahead.
who owns, who started Union Square Cafe, and then Gramercy Tavern, and now many restaurants, and including Shake Shack.
It's the one that most people can connect to these days.
Those fries are no joke.
And I had a great interview process with him, because for me, as a chef coming to New York, it's tough. And when you don't get it right, I think in the beginning, it's very hard to recover from it. So I really had to because as a chef, all we have is reputation. And this is like the thing that you have to really be careful of, and it can get damaged, and then everything is down the drain. And, I've been cooking now for over 20 years, but you really want to protect your reputation. And coming to New York, I had to make sure I'm going to work for the right guy, it's the right restaurant, it's the right time, and so forth. And eventually, I decided to come, and not far into it, we also needed a strong person in the dining room. And then this is how we met. Danny felt, and I think because Danny is a lot about the culture, that is unique and really powerful and different. And he's been a great mentor in that for me, because nobody ever has taught me that side of the business. But he felt that it was important to bring somebody from within his organization who really knows the culture. And we met briefly in meetings before, and I said, what about Will? And
He pursued me.
yeah, and then it was love at first sight, I think.
We actually, whenever there was a GM there, and Daniel and that GM just weren't getting along, so whenever it's that kind of thing, you need to meet and get to know one another in like a clandestine way. So we met really fully for the first time right around the corner at Crispo. Have you guys been to Crispo? And we gorged on pasta, and then there's actually a little Dominican bar like 3 doors down from Crispo, and then we drank plenty of beers there, and that kind of gets me to where I was, where I didn't want to be in fine dining, but I wanted to grow within Danny's company, and he was a guy that I had a lot of respect for. And my dad, who's always played a very significant role in my evolution, said, listen, if this is a guy you respect and they ask you to do something, you should do it, but put a time limit on it. So when I went to work with Daniel at 11 Madison, it was supposed to be for a year. And we'll tell the whole story of the evolution, but within that year, what I hated about fine dining was that it needed to be stuffy, it needed to be inaccessible, it needed to be pretentious. And I found through our youthfulness and through the friendship that started to develop between the two of us that it didn't actually need to be that way. It was just that way because that's how it had been before. And within that year, we started approaching the 3 Michelin Star experience with a little bit more of a sense of humor. And we started surrounding ourselves with people who felt the same way. And so at the end of the year, they came back to me and they said, all right, you put in your year, thank you, it's time to move on. And I said, no, this is just starting to feel good. And that was in 2007, so we've come a long way since then.
Well, talk to us about that evolution, because I remember going to 11 Madison Park when I first moved to New York. I think my law firm, took us there for some sort of dinner, and it was very different back then. It was before you came on board. It was much more sort of upright, I guess. And so talk to us a little bit about the evolution that you came to create with your food, and then how you came in to influence that as well in the front.
I think, in the beginning, it's clear. When you're trying to make a restaurant better, there's things that you need to do. You need to have less seats. When we got there were 190 seats in the restaurant, and that's just too many to do anything that's really world class. So we removed seats to get ahead. We're now at 80 seats. So we've removed a ton of seats from the restaurant. And then you need to change the way that you train your staff. You need to get nicer china and nicer glassware and nicer silverware, and there's all the obvious things. But to Daniel's point, the thing that I think we learned most from Danny was the importance of culture, and even beyond that, the importance of language to help define a culture. We, at 11 Madison Park, we have 150 people, and now with the new restaurant opening, which we'll talk about soon, we have 500 people in our company. And that's a lot of people to get on the same page, and I think language is really important to get people aligned in the spirit of our collective endeavor and the philosophy that we're trying to pursue. So the real evolution of 11 Madison Park started, and you'll all see a picture of him if you bought the cookbook, with Miles Davis, which was our first review. We got reviewed for the first time in the New York Observer in 2006, and it was a far better review than we deserved at the time. We were not anywhere near as good as we wanted to be. But at the end of the review, Moira Hodgson, the reviewer at the time, said that she wished we had a bit more Miles Davis. And so we said, wow, that's really cool. And then we're like, I have no idea what that means. So we started listening to a bunch of Miles and started reading a bunch about Miles, and we came up with a list of 11 words. And within that list were words like collaborative, fresh, endless reinvention, forward moving. And essentially that list of words, which hangs in our kitchen now along with a couple pictures of Miles, became our mission statement and essentially guided all of the decisions that we made. When you listen to Miles's music, or when you read about Miles Davis, what you find is a guy that was instantly successful, right? With Kinda Blue, he released one of the most seminal jazz albums in the history of jazz. But then, rather than resting on his laurels, rather than kind of just sitting back and enjoying the ride, he completely changed his approach to music. And then less than, I think it was 5 or 6 years later, he released Bitches Brew, where he was adding, for the first time ever, electric instrumentation to jazz, which is something that anyone who was a purist in the art form at the time would have certainly said was going to fail. And it was that approach to his music that made him what we all know him now to be. And the other thing that he did really, really effectively was he approached his music very collaboratively. When you look at some of the great jazz musicians over time, most of them came from Miles's band. And the reason that they went on to do such cool things is because it was never just Miles. It was him and his entire band developing music together. So the evolution of 11 Madison Park, I really believe, is due to, of that list of words, those two, endless reinvention and collaborative. Collaborative, starting with the two of us. They're in restaurants, and you've seen Hell's Kitchen or likely some of these shows. There's this inherent tension between the people serving the food and the people cooking it. He's my best friend. Definitively, we should hate each other. We should be yelling at each other throughout service, but what we effectively realized was in order for work to be fun, and in order for us to have the capacity to do something significant in the dining room, we needed to be very collaborative in our approach. It wasn't about the back of house and the front of house. It was about a restaurant that included a kitchen and a dining room.
You guys are like Bert and Ernie up here.
Was that?
Really sweet. It's like Bert and Ernie.
Thank you.
Sesame Street.
That's really sweet. This is
It's true.
on the internet, right? So
yeah,
it's good.
it is. Out there
I
forever.
appreciate your sensitivity. I don't speak
That's a
English.
good. It's a good reference, I promise. Bert and Ernie.
This is the sweater that he's wearing, and then and then the idea of endless reinvention, which kind of is the hallmark of what we've done. And in changing so much, we were able to consistently get people to pay attention to us and identify or acknowledge how much we were improving over the years, which is how we went from a 2-star restaurant to a 3-star restaurant to a 4-star restaurant within 3 years, which has never been done. And I have to correct one of your facts. This year we became a 3 Michelin Star restaurant.
I'm sorry. I Googled it.
And we became the first.
I binged it, I meant, or something like that. No,
Binged it, that was the problem.
Yeah, that was the problem.
So, I mean, I guess that's really, at least philosophically, kind of marks how we approached the last few years.
Well, so the book finally came out. So tell us about your inspiration for the book, apart from Miles Davis. What else sort of fed into, why was this the right time to bring it out and all that?
I think for me as a chef, I've been collecting cookbooks all my life. And it was always a dream to, at some point, you know, have a book of my own. And the last 5 years at 11 Madison Park have been, you know, we've been focusing on to get to a certain goal, and we had this vision, and over really it took 5 years to kind of get there. Since then, our vision has become much greater, and we have, you know, new goals. But I think, like last year, we really arrived at a place where we've been working so long for 5 years to get there. And so it was a really, and also from the team, we had many people who have been with us for the entire 5 years. And for many people, this has been professionally the most important time in our time, but beyond, like, you know, so many more people, it has been their most important time as well. And we wanted to mark that with a book, because, you know, different to art or architecture or music, things get recorded, buildings get built, and paintings get made, and then they're there forever, exactly the way they're intended to be. And restaurants are different. A restaurant experience is really only lives in your memory, and in 30, 40 years, nobody will remember, and it's gone. And I think a book is a great way for, in our business, to really mark that time that was so special, I think, for a lot of the employees and us, but also for, I think, of a lot of the guests. And, you know, it's really great to have it. Definitely a dream come true. And now, you know, it's a new chapter. Now we own the restaurant. I mean, everything happened, you know, it was crazy last year, the way it all happened. I mean, we got, you know, 3 Michelin stars. We became owners of the restaurant, and we released the cookbook. It happened within like 3 weeks. Everything, and there are big goals, and everything kind of happened. So
now we're bored.
No, now this is, you know, now I mean, this is also, there are recipes for the food, exactly the way we do it at the restaurant, or we did do it at the restaurant. And then there's also the recipes and stories of how we got, you know, to where we are today. But now we're excited. I mean, in the kitchen, I can tell you that our goal is not to cook anything that's in the cookbook ever again. And
It really is a commemorative
yeah,
issue almost.
it's a special time, and now we have to move forward. And we, in 3 or 4 years, there will be a new book, and maybe it's going to be black, and everything, will be different. And but that's what's so exciting. I think last year was a really special year, and we're so fortunate to have it in a book form and be able to share.
The process of making the book, however, was a much messier experience than I think what you see in front of you. We had no idea what we were doing in the beginning, and we talk about collaboration and that approach, and the publisher and the book agents say, all right, you need a writer and you need a recipe tester, and they want you to have this entire team. And the idea of involving anyone outside the walls of our restaurant in the production of our book seemed completely counterintuitive to us. So we said, no, we got this. And we had our assistant was going to do all the recipe testing, and one of the cooks was going to write all the recipes. And 2 weeks later, we were missing all of our meetings, and the whole thing was an absolute disaster. And we really had to stop and collect ourselves. And we still did it internally, but that book is the result of about 20 people working only on that for an entire year. Because we wanted it to be a few things. We wanted it to be reflective of what the restaurant is. We wanted it to work. Every one of those recipes was tested over and over and over again, and in spite of the fact that they're an absolute reflection of his food, they're actually as accessible as possible considering the food that you're making. And we wanted it to be dynamic and innovative, and we wanted to put a lot of thought into kind of changing the way that a cookbook can work. We have an email address, if any of you are emailing us right now, in the beginning of the book saying, hey, email us if you have a problem with any of these recipes. And it was...
You're going to get bombarded now when this goes on YouTube.
Cookbook at 11MadisonPark.com. But so yeah, it was a huge endeavor, much bigger than we ever imagined. I think if we had known how much it would have taken to make it happen, we would have been reticent to start. Yeah. But now that we're done, we're really happy that we did it.
Do you guys have a favorite recipe from the book or from that time?
That's a hard question. I mean, there's so many. I think we're doing the suckling pig, and there are, in each season, so the book is organized by seasons, and in each season there's one ingredient that we've done 4 dishes of. And in the springtime, it's the suckling pig, where we use, the shoulder, the belly, the rack, and the leg. And I think these are some of my favorite pages, spreads in the cookbook. And then in the summer, we have tomato 4 different ways. And in the winter, we have game. And in the winter, we have black truffles. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But for the reasonably ambitious but not overly committed home cook, the chicken, I'm not a chef. So actually, I cooked out of this book once because someone bought my girlfriend and I a pasta maker, and I got it, and I was like, yeah, let's make pasta. And then I was like, I have no idea how to make pasta. So what you do when you're me is you call the 3 Michelin chef who is on your speed dial. You're like, chef, how do I make pasta? And
no, what he did first, he Googled.
Yeah, I did actually. And then I was like, wait, hold on, I should call chef. And he's like, dude, it's in the book you just wrote. So, if you need a pasta recipe, I can attest from personal experience, it's a good one. But the chicken, the roast chicken, the whole bird in there is unbelievable. And that's what I've cooked for my friends now since then.
So that's the one thing you can make now.
That's the only thing that I can, that and exceptional macaroni and cheese.
Awesome. So, given that we all have apartments with pretty small kitchens, I'm guessing a suckling pig is not realistic for me personally to make. Is there, apart from the roast chicken, what else would you recommend that we try in our tiny kitchens?
There's also a few beautiful vegetable dishes, like roasted cauliflower, or a dish with eggplant, There's some salads in there. And, also use the book as using some of the elements of the book. We have chapter in the back of the book with basics where we have, a lot of different purees, for example. And so if you make one of these purees, you can also make these purees with more liquid, more water or chicken stock, and you can make it into a soup. And I think it's just a really interesting, if you read the recipes, you're going to learn a lot in just your everyday cooking. Just certain tips and tricks, how we do things different. And the dishes don't need to be done, some of the dishes have 12 recipes. And for the most case, you can make, the main part, which is the meat or the fish or the vegetable, and then maybe 2 other parts, and you have a great dish. But we wanted the book to be exactly what we do at the restaurant, and some recipes are a little crazy when you really read through it. I'm like, really? Are there that many recipes? And yes, there are, but you don't need to make them all at home.
We had to get really good on our book tour at defending the accessibility of the book. And we found 2 ways to most effectively do that. A lot of people challenge whether people can do sous vide cooking in their home. And we spend enough time on airplanes to have combed through every single page of Sky Mall. And so I actually took the Sky Mall magazine with me because they now sell sous vide machines in Sky Mall, which means it's now the everyman's approach to cooking. And when we were in LA, this 12-year-old kid came to one of our book signings, and he'd already cooked through half of the book out of his bedroom. So if he can do
It's
it.
a little creepy. Very precocious 12-year-old. We need to get him at Google.
Yeah, we invited him.
Yeah.
We invited him to our restaurant, and
Yeah.
he spent a week working in the kitchen at 11 Madison Park 2 months later.
That's amazing.
It was really cool.
Unbelievable.
I hope you guys videotape that or something.
We got
That's
some good
pretty
pictures.
Amazing. That's awesome.
But he's so serious. It was, I tried to joke around with him, and he's like, "I'm working, dude." So
He's like, cut it, Ernie.
he's like, "Come on."
Very busy. Well, if you guys weren't in the food business, what would you do?
I don't know. I would be probably a professional cyclist.
Cyclist.
Yeah.
He's a ridiculous athlete. He ran like a 2-hour and 48-minute marathon.
I was, when I was a junior, I was on the Swiss national team for mountain biking, and I had the opportunity to go to be a professional cyclist. But then I also wasn't. I felt like I always got beaten by the same guys. There were always a few guys that were just a little better, and I hated not to be the best, and so.
So you quit.
So I quit.
That's inspiring. That's good to say to them.
And I and I loved cooking, and so I cooked and tried to be the best here, and I think I'm doing better.
Yeah.
What about you, Will?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. My parents sent me to space camp. And then that wasn't a reality. I'm a musician. I play the drums. That was what I did for a really long time. And I always wanted to follow my dad's footsteps, and I also always wanted to be a musician. And at a certain point, I just decided that I could be in the restaurant business and still play music, but I couldn't do it the other way around. So probably in the music business.
So what is the best meal you guys have ever had, apart from something you've made? Or apart from his chicken?
Thank you.
Sounds pretty good.
That's hard. I mean, I don't think it's possible to. It's like asking you what's the best website you've ever visited or something. I mean, I think
Google.com,
that everyone.
obviously. Leads me to the whole interweb.
No, but I think that there's different restaurants that speak to us in different ways. And one of the things that we do in the book is we talk a lot about the different places from which we've garnered inspiration. I think in terms of restaurants that are doing more or less what we're doing, and I can speak on behalf of both of us because we talk about this a lot, but Alinea in Chicago, obviously Noma is pretty exceptional. Qua in San Francisco, Daniel Patterson's restaurant is unbelievable. We had a really great meal at Benu, which is Corey Lee's new restaurant in San Francisco. But then there's plenty of restaurants that you get a lot of inspiration from. Even places like Rayo's in Uptown, where obviously that's not at all what we look to do, but there's things about that experience, the dialogue-driven approach to order taking. There's these little places all over the world that do really cool things, and our intention was to take fine dining and change the way that it was approached a little bit, and so we needed to look beyond the world of fine dining in order to be inspired. And so I think it's hard to say what's the best, but we're blessed in that we get to travel and dine at some pretty cool places.
So what's next? You guys mentioned a new project on the horizon. Tell us about it.
Well, for us, today was actually a big day because 80% of our kitchen staff started for our new restaurant, which is the Nomad, north of Madison Park. It's on 28th and Broadway, pretty close to 11 Madison Park. And this is our first restaurant that we are opening. I mean, you've opened restaurants. I've never opened, but it's definitely our first own restaurant. So, we're really focused on that. I mean, beyond that, it's hard to say. Right now, we just got to crush it with the second one, because also the problem when you get so much acclaim like we did the last year is that now people are going to be really watching. And so we have to really make sure we're really good right out of the gate. And we're really focused on that. And as far as the concept of the new restaurant, it's going to be, slightly more casual compared to 11 Madison. It's going to have an a la carte menu, which is different to 11 Madison. So it's going to be more accessible from a price point, but also more accessible from a time commitment point. But the food and the experience is going to be really creative. We're going to have an open heart oven. We're going to bake our own bread for every table. We're going to have a whole roasted chicken.
Are you making? You're making it?
See me and Chef White's at the Nomad.
We'll have a lot of dishes with vegetables. We'll have seafood. We'll have meats, obviously, but vegetables will play a big role. But the place is like a urban playground. I don't know if you've been to a Hotel Coste in Paris. And it's a very fashionable hotel, and it's been trendy for the past 15 years. But it's a really cool space. It's designed by Jacques Garcia, which is the same designer that we chose for our project. And it has many different rooms with different feels. It has a library, it has a bar, it has a fireplace room, it has an atrium, it has the room where there is the open heart oven, and everything is has a different feel, but with the same food. The food and service at the Coste is not very good, and we really want to change that. We want to have, who says that if you're more casual and if you're cooler and there's louder music, who says that the service can be just as good?
The French.
And the French. I thought it was them.
Just joking.
I think if at 11 Madison the idea was to take formal dining and make it less stuffy, more fun. The idea here is to take more casual dining and make it more composed. So it is a la carte. The food is his food, just not plated with tweezers. The service is our service, but if there's 50 steps of service at 11 Madison, there's 20 steps of service at Nomad. And music is a big part of it for us as well. I think at 11 Madison, music is only there so that people don't feel a compulsion to whisper when there's only a few tables in the dining room. But then when the dining room is full at 11 Madison, you can't even hear the music anymore. At Nomad, we want people to hear the music. We want that to actually be another ingredient in the experience. And that's been really fun for us to put that together. And looking, at everyone from Etta James to, to
Miles
Johnny
Davis,
Cash.
I hope.
No, to the Rolling Stones.
No,
No,
Miles
Miles
Davis?
Davis is 11 Madison Park.
Oh, interesting.
Actually, the musical inspiration for the Nomad are the Rolling Stones. Because the Rolling Stones, if anyone here has read Keith Richards' book, which is a pretty cool book to read, you know this, or also just by reading everything else that's been written about them. The Rolling Stones come off as crazy, loud, totally chaotic, unplanned, but if you learn their story, they're one of the most deliberate, intentional, contemplative bands ever. When they were in the UK just kind of developing their music, they'd buy every single blues album that would come out of America, learn every song note from note, break them down, study them. Why was it done this way? And the Nomad should be the louder, looser version of 11 Madison Park. The music turned up, our hair let down a little bit, but where every single thing is intentional and nothing is on accident. And we're really excited for it. I think it's going to be a really fun restaurant.
It sounds amazing. When does it open? When can we look forward to going?
End of March. So
Right
we're
around
in
the
it
corner.
right now.
Yeah, thanks for stopping, taking the time out. Then you're
course.
very busy. Okay, we'll do a couple of fill in the blanks because this is what I do now.
Okay.
This has become my thing. Before we turn it over for Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys have said, just finish the sentence. Whatever comes to mind, no pressure. Okay,
Oui.
good? Oui?
Oui, chef.
Now you're into French.
Yeah.
He's gone from Italian to French.
Oh, that's how we communicate in the kitchen. Oui, chef.
Oui. French food is?
Delicious.
Delicious.
You're going to give the same answer
French
for
fo-
everything?
We're alive.
French food is the basic of what we do.
And delicious for you. Okay. Danny Meyer
Is an incredible guy and was my mentor for the first 10 years of my career.
As well, Danny is a mentor and is the first person who made me look at running restaurants in a different way.
Junk food is?
What I eat almost all the time.
What I have to eat when I travel sometimes, when
With
I'm with
me.
him.
I introduced Chef to every chain restaurant that a person like him should never go to.
But maybe that'll be your next concept, be improving that.
I wish I'd invented In-N-Out Burger. I think that's one of the best things that has ever been created.
You're saying that to Danny Meyer with the Shake Shack? Just trying to get you in trouble. Okay, food bloggers are?
The best people in the world. Where's the camera?
No, for me, for me actually, when it first really started, when the first bloggers really started having some sort of an impact on our business, I was a little frustrated. But now, today, I'm happy because I think, in Europe, growing up, there was only Michelin, and that was it. And if you go up or down, that could be your business. If you lose a star, it could be over. And now today there are so many avenues and so many publications and bloggers and so many informations, and I think it's great. I think it's great because it makes each of them less powerful, and there are a lot of opinions out there, and it's fair to listen to everyone's opinion. I think it also we do pay attention to what people write about us, and we evaluate everything, and we have gotten better through it. There's some good information, there's some not so good, but it keeps us on our toes, and it makes us better. So I'm happy. that they're there.
Yeah, I think if you're in this industry, you made a choice to go into a field where you will always be criticized. And I think it's actually funny that people get upset when they're criticized, because that's kind of just the nature of what we do. And I also, listen, the only reason you guys are doing this sort of thing is because that world was proliferated, right? I mean, the success of restaurants has been helped in a very significant way because so many people are so passionate about it. We, for example, have no problem with people taking pictures in our dining room. We ask that people don't use a flash, but it's honoring. And I don't understand restaurants or chefs that are so anti that sort of thing, because bloggers are, at their core, in paying attention to something and writing about it, you're honoring it. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's frustrating, but we do pretty well, so.
So for now, it's fine.
Yeah.
A food trend I like is?
Going more sustainable.
Okay, you can take a food trend I hate is?
People that take too much credit for going more sustainable. No, in seriousness, I hate these restaurants where you go and you look at the menu and they talk about all these random farms with all the ingredients, when I guarantee you they don't even know what those farms look like. And what does that say for the other 70% of the ingredients that they didn't put a farm on? It's like, we got all this at Seatown and we got these 3 things at a farm. I feel like a lot of people are taking it too far and not doing it in as holistic a way as they should be. We never write the names of the farms.
Because everything's from Seatown.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because people, it's all great, and I think people, it's a little bit contrived sometimes.
Food trucks are?
I don't go to food trucks.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah.
I believe him. I don't know if I believe you.
No, I would.
I think food trucks are overrated.
And you don't go to them.
They're everywhere.
Reality chef competitions are?
No good.
Are you going to do one?
Am I gonna fill in the blank?
Yeah.
Do I have a choice?
You don't have to if you're feeling pressure.
No, I actually would honestly answer in the same way that I answered ultimately about bloggers. I think that they're not so good. They don't represent restaurants in the best way, but they help generate a lot of buzz for what we do. And as long as you can kind of hold yourself above that fray, I think it's been good for our industry.
Great. Well, thank you guys. We're going to turn it over to Q&A from the audience, and if you guys can come up to the mics to ask your questions, that'd be great. Thanks.
Hi, I absolutely love your granola, and I wish I could go to the restaurant every week, but I unfortunately don't have that luxury. Is there any way that that I could get your granola any other way? Do you sell it?
The
by the
recipe
can?
is in the cookbook.
Oh, okay. If I don't trust my cooking skills, however. So is there any other way I could get a tin of granola?
In addition to the other restaurant, we are in the process of setting up a company to sell the granola.
Oh, nice.
But we're a little busy right now, so it's going to take a few months.
Mm-hmm.
In the interim, if you come to the restaurant and say that you were at the Google Talk, we'll give you a jar or 2 of granola.
Thank you. I'm so excited. 100 people there.
Do you so regret putting
No,
that
it's a
out?
manageable enough group.
Right.
I think we can deal with that.
Make them show ID. There's a lot of people on YouTube. Yeah.
Go to 11 Madison Park. What's really nice is that you have this quality all over the place. It's in the food, in the presentation, and in the stuff. And what I find impressive is that you are actually able to maintain it on all levels. So how do you do it? How do you, like, with 150 people, manage to get a high quality experience maintained and consistent?
My dad, when I was a kid, gave me this quote. I think it was by Calvin Coolidge, and it was this long quote, but the last line was, "Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." And I think that what we do is something that requires just being on every single day. And it's a human organization, and it's a team sport, right? And you're only as good as the weakest person on your team. So I think that we hire really good people. Oftentimes they bring zero experience. Most of the people on our team have never worked in a restaurant before. But it's our belief that what we do isn't rocket science. You can teach that, but you need to surround yourself with really good people. And then being there every single day to teach and to motivate and to work with people. And that's why when he says, I've never gone to work and not loved it, I don't think you can be successful in our business without just loving it. Otherwise, it would become really, really exhausting. But it's just day in, day out, day in, day out. In his talk today with all the new cooks, he was talking about how to be an exceptional chef, you really need to value and love repetition and not get bored by repetition, but actually look at it as an incredibly noble thing, always looking to just do something a little bit better than you did it the day before. And I think that that applies to the philosophy that we ask our entire staff to have, but it also applies to the way in which we need to manage them and manage the restaurant.
Hi. So thanks for coming. I've actually had the pleasure of dining at 11 Madison Park, both for lunch and dinner. But I do have an accessibility question, because I did see you on Martha Stewart about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And you made this roasted chicken dish. It was so appealing, like on the show, and it was a roasted chicken, but you had infused it with breadcrumbs and butter. And so then I got inspired that weekend to
do
actually
it.
make it. And living in New York, the accessibility of ingredients is not an issue, right? So I have confidence I could probably get together any of the ingredients in your cookbook. But when I actually made it, it did turn out delicious, but it kind of got into this like buttery, sappy, kind of soggy mess. And so, I don't
Need to
have
do
a
it better next time.
Well, true, but it is kind of one of those home cooking things where I'm trying to be you, and then that's like impossible. So it was still very flavorful and tasty, but it really turned into this equivalent of like fried chicken.
Did you chill it before you baked it, after you filled it?
The chicken?
Yeah.
It was a chilled chicken.
No, but
like
after you put in the filling,
Oh, you have to chill it?
did you put it back in the...
No.
That's why.
That's why. Okay. All right. I didn't have like a specific question about that particular recipe, but that's my general question of like, how do we be a little bit more of a, obviously you're such a trained chef and then also have that creative mind to just, have that technique that I can't even possibly conceive of having, the level of technique in cooking as a home cook.
I think
to you guys.
It's our belief, and this goes back to the entire philosophy of this book, that to be accessible does not mean you don't also have to be precise. I think the cooking, and joking aside when he says you have to chill it, the food is as good as it is because everything is done in a very specific way. It's not necessarily so difficult, and maybe the recipe through Martha Stewart wasn't tracked perfectly, but you can't skip a step.
Okay.
And I think it's the philosophy behind everything that we do. Something doesn't need to be super out of control difficult. It just needs to be perfect.
Precise.
And
Okay.
every single step is important. And when you talk about how do you get the restaurant to where it is, it's kind of bestowing that philosophy on our staff every single day. There's no such thing as a shortcut. I'm not presuming you
No,
took one.
that's actually very helpful. Thanks.
So,
Hello.
hi.
So I have a two-part question. First is, how can I get an invitation to the soft opening for the new restaurant? And
Everybody at Google, just show up, say you work there. I'm joking.
and then once I'm there, what would you be most excited for me to try?
I think there's been so much talk about the chicken, so I think you gotta try the chicken.
It's pretty cool. Garrett Oliver, do you know who that is? He runs Brooklyn Brewery. We're actually doing a project with him where he is brewing a beer called Le Poulet, which is a beer that was made specifically to drink with that dish. And we're really enjoying that process with him. But I think for me, when you talked about the vegetables that are going to be at Nomad, we just did a couple tastings the past week, and the vegetable-focused dishes. And when we say vegetable, we're not saying vegetarian. we're just saying dishes that have a focus on vegetables are just unbelievable. And I can say that because I had nothing to do with their preparation, but they're really, really good. I would try those as well.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you for letting us get away with not answering the first part of it.
Thanks again for coming and for the great book. I was curious about the ingredients. How easy is it to get some of the ingredients that you work with? I saw this segment on 60 Minutes about truffles that it makes it harder for you to find the real truffles from Paris or Italy because of this black market in China. Is that the case for you, or and how about some of the other ingredients too?
I mean, as you're speaking for us in the restaurant, or you're speaking for a home cook?
For you in the restaurant.
I think things are definitely changing a little bit in the world, especially with like wild fish from like the Atlantic, like wild turbot or wild John Dory and wild Ludemer, and they're much more rare, and the price is really now what sometimes keeps us from really still getting it, and because certain things become so expensive that you would never able to charge that much to the diners. As far as truffles, also I think there's less and less truffles each year. I've heard that in 30 years there will be no more truffles. I don't know if that's true, but my belief is that high quality ingredients, you don't always need to go for these luxurious ingredients. For me, like a high quality carrot is a luxurious ingredient, and we live close to the Black Dirt region, which is in the Hudson Valley, in the foot of the Hudson Valley. And the Black Dirt region is one of the best regions for growing root vegetables in the world. And so I think we just need to rethink a little bit. We need to look close, and we can make, and that's why we are using carrots or cauliflower or celery as the main ingredient on a dish, because we believe that is a luxury too, because they're grown in the best way, and it's some sort of a heirloom variety, and I think so the food is definitely changing a little bit based on what you've seen on 60 Minutes, and there's definitely some truth to that.
Thanks.
Do we have time for two more? Are we good? Yeah, we can do two more. We'll just take these last two questions.
Mine's quick, I swear. So I've had the luxury of going to 11 Madison Park a couple of times. It's been really amazing every time. So my compliments to you.
Thank you.
But I have a separate question from something that I was a little hung up on. Being a native Westchesterite, I have to ask which Baskin Robbins you worked in.
In Terrytown.
Not mine. I was hoping you would be the one in Rye, because you probably would have given me ice cream every time I went to Hebrew school.
It was, my friend Jerry Mack's mom owned the Baskin Robbins, which was why I was able to get a job, and why I didn't lose it every time I messed up writing on the cakes when you had to write happy birthday. I still freak out at the idea of having to do that.
Did you make the clown cones also?
Yes, I did. I was very good at that.
Very impressive. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. I've had the pleasure of being immersed in the New York City food, wine, and restaurant world through a rather diverse background, and in that I've met Davis Anderson, your newest sommelier.
Oh, yeah.
And so first I just wanted to say he's already had the pleasure of meeting Chef, and he's said very good things.
Cool.
My question is around sort of collaboration and creativity, as you have talked about the culture of 11 Madison Park. What is the process for evolving the menu? Does it involve everyone in the back of house? Do you have a conversation with the front of house? Is it a weekly meeting? How often does it change?
I think the menu changes every week, and not fully, but a couple dishes. And the way we do it, we have a meeting every month that just talks about what dishes we're gonna change, and it's a core group of 4 people. It's just the people who have been with me the longest, who have creative input. And then we're throwing out some ingredients, some ideas everyone has. And then we're reviewing it, and we start working on it. And then each of the sous chefs is going to work with the team on it, so we get also influence from the team. And then every week we get together, and we see the results of where it went. And this is kind of our process. And sometimes in the first try, a dish turns out to be incredible, and sometimes after 5 tries, it's still not working, and we need to scratch the whole idea. It's never. I wish there would be a very clear formula how it works. I mean, we have a way of how the process works, but some ideas work and some don't, and it's important that you have ideas some of them that don't work, because that means you're really searching hard enough and you're really trying to be creative. And sometimes you go down a path for like 5 weeks, and you learn a lot in that process. And maybe 5 weeks later, it's like now the dish is just. Now it's just about the technique, and it doesn't taste good anymore. But maybe 6 months later, it could be like, oh, you remember when we did that, and it didn't work, but now maybe it could work. So.
And by not work, it comes back with the plate full or not fully cleaned off?
No, it would never be served. For me, the most important thing it's that a dish has to be really delicious, and I think I'm a pretty good judge of that. Even with, as a chef, you have to, you want to show a new technique, or you want to show what you can do. But in the end of the day, it has to be delicious. And even if it's like super creative and super inventive, if it doesn't taste good, forget it. And I think I'm a pretty good judge of knowing when it's just about the technique or when it's actually tastes good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. This is
Thank
really
you.
fun.
Thank you.